Right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Student Art Podcast. I'm your host, Ross Baxter, and today is episode 40 of the series. And today we got an amazing guest for you. We've got environment artist and assistant art director. We've got Lincoln Hughes on the show. How you doing, man?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on the show, man.
Anytime. I'm super excited for this. So many different topics that we can discuss today. Everyone who's tuning in, by the way, right now, make sure to go give him a follow. So all 1,800 of you, go spam his follow button. Appreciate the man's work. All his social media will be highlighted above right now. So is it, I take it, Twitter, do you use Instagram at all?
Yeah, I use Instagram. It's just like Lincoln.Hughes 2D, I believe.
Awesome. And then ArtStation, of course, like the main one, I guess. So make sure to go give him a follow. If you're new to the podcast, as always, folks, the podcast is live on 9 other platforms alongside YouTube. We are on Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, and last but not least, we got Stitcher. If you're tuning in, guys, on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe. That'll be much appreciated. And leave a like if you enjoyed today's episode. But with all that said, let's get into the podcast. Thanks once again, man. Let's do this.
Awesome.
So, as always, just tell us a wee bit about yourself. So, an introduction, like who you are and what you do exactly.
So you already said I'm an environment / concept artist / assistant art director in the game industry.
Awesome.
I've been doing this for probably around 13, 14 years.
Wow.
I started off with, I started off with Tim Simpson back in the day, in Vancouver at a small game studio. It was called Piranha, and I think they're still around. They're doing Mech Warrior. A lot of super talented people there. From there, I moved on to Next Level Games. Then I was at THQ Relic for a while, and then Electronic Arts in Burnaby. And then me and Tim were actually living together at the time. And he got a job at Ubisoft in Montreal, and he's like, "Oh, hey, yeah, do you want to come with me? Check it out." So, yeah, we both flew out here, lived together, and I was working on Watch Dogs 1, 2,
Awesome.
Far Cry 4, and then I went to Warner Brothers, and I was working on an unannounced project there for a few years, and then I just recently got a promotion to assistant art director when I moved to Toot Games, where we're working on a D&D style game.
Awesome. Wow. Gee whiz. Talk about, literally, you've worked everywhere. That's awesome. Because like that's the great thing. Because obviously when it comes to the podcast, the whole thing's always about the whole idea of story. And obviously it's about student education, but it's hearing your journey and obviously the fact that you're now an assistant art director, that's amazing. And you're actually the first one on the show, so that's awesome.
Cool.
Cool. There'll be something different we can talk about as well. So just speaking about student education, I guess. So I always like to ask the same sort of 4 main questions to get things going. Is there anything you wish you learned when you were studying art at university?
I found university. Well, I didn't go to university. I went to a private college. It was called the Art Institute of Burnaby.
Awesome.
It was crazy expensive, just like most private colleges are. So in terms of what I wish that I learned while studying there, I'd probably say there's a bunch of them. There's probably brushing up on soft skills. So, you go to university and, that's quite different from actually working in the industry, right? Because, you're going to be working in a big team environment, and, some universities are better than others at actually having a team environment. But that's a different way of thinking. It's, it's almost like working at McDonald's and getting trained in a big corporation,
Yeah.
So that's one. I'd also say macro style thinking. I find especially in colleges and universities, they're so honed in on teaching you that one little thing that getting the broad picture and teaching an artist to focus on the overall frame instead of that tiny little pixel in the corner is that's something that I definitely think I wish that I had learned while I was there. And I think I partially did, but you develop that the further you go and the more skills you get and the better mentors that you have,
Definitely. Because I'm glad you mentioned the soft skills. Obviously, so I was saying to you earlier, so before we even started the podcast, so I watched, so Lincoln did this awesome talk about everything related to like story and giving things like character and relating to your art and so forth. And I'll make sure to give you guys that link, so make sure to go check that out. And the actual one thing that I got from that was the whole topic of talking, and like how like you're very good at talking, like you're a great public speaker. And,
oh, thanks, man.
Oh, it just,
sometimes.
trust me, you can tell you're really good. And I I know it's a random question, but it's like, what's your thoughts on like the whole idea of talking? I know this is probably a bit of a random one, but it's like a lot of people that I come across are naturally very shy when it comes to art.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure what your perspective is on that.
Well, man, yeah, it's crazy. Like just over the past like 3 years, like I basically started creating my own business and on the side, and you know, I had to market that and try to grow my audience and all that. Mm-hmm. And like you can't really do that if you don't have any experience talking.
Yep.
And you know, I think for the first like 10 years of my career, I was so scared of public speaking and putting myself out there because, you know, you might fail, you might sound like an idiot, whatever, right? Mm-hmm. Constantly coming up with excuses as to why I shouldn't do that. And I don't know, I kind of just, I got this opportunity to speak in Guadalajara in Mexico for SIDCAP. And it was crazy. It was like 500 people and you're just sweating bullets, freaking out about it. And yeah, but I don't know, the more you do it, the better you get at it, and the less it bothers you. And like, you're always still going to have, like, even right now, I'm a little bit nervous. I'm on a podcast, you know, but like, yeah, the more you get into it and the more the questions start to like resonate with you, like the more passionate you become and the less you worry, basically. Yeah. So,
no,
yeah.
I'm glad you said that. Yeah. Cause like every time I do the podcast, like to me, the main thing is always about like being yourself. And I'm one of those totally. Like main culprits. Like I just like to geek out about art, like anything art related. Just sign me up and I'll have a good conversation with you. Trust me, I could talk totally. About it forever. But like obviously, like carrying on like that sort of topic, obviously with like the talking stuff. The really awesome thing that not only like that I love about your artwork, like your artwork has like so much great color, great story, and it'd be awesome to talk about story. Like when it comes to like art, like in general, when it comes to like students, what's your thoughts on like story overall? Like, are they lacking amount of story in their art pieces? Like, what's your thoughts on story?
I actually find it quite interesting because I do find students actually try to tell a lot more stories in their art than even the pros sometimes. Mm-hmm. Because, you know, like they're just starting out, and like it's usually like a lot of like big artists a lot of junior artists that really want to break in. They're just so passionate about it, and that's part of the reason why they want to break in the first place. And part of the reason why they're passionate is because they're so inspired by the art that already exists, and you know, they're so inspired by like the stories of the films that they've watched or the games that they've played, right? Mm-hmm. And yeah, I definitely think that students already kind of have that. They have that passion for it, but they don't have like the tools and the knowledge to be able to format that story in such a way where it's made compositionally perfect. The story fits the lighting, the palette fits the lighting, mm-hmm. And you know, that's just kind of stuff that you learn as you go along.
Definitely.
And yeah, I would say it's probably like one of the most important things that makes a good art piece really interesting.
Awesome. Because like when it comes to like I understand like obviously a lot of artists are aiming for like that sort of like perfect image, and
yeah,
like when it comes to me though, when I kind of approach my artwork, so like my recent piece, I always like approach it with a sort of movie sort of approach, even though it's like still a still image. So like one of my favorite people in the world, like idols, was Spielberg. And like what he did with his directing for movies and so forth, and his ability to tell a story through composition and like camera angles, etc. And it's like those small things that I think, like for example, when you're putting something on ArtStation or whatever main website you're using, it'd be great if people like you said, obviously started executing maybe more of that sort of narrative into play. Like I understand obviously lots of people are doing it, but it's like you said, making sure that they refine it more.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think like it's all about just learning the tips and tricks surrounding how to do that, you know? Like how do you show a character that looks evil in a 2D image? Like what does that mean in terms of shape language? What does it mean in terms of the lighting that you use? Like, are you going to want really dark lighting? Is there like something about the character that you can tell through the lighting? Like, I don't know. It's just figuring out all these little things and then putting the package all together and selling that, you know?
Awesome. So one of the main things I like to ask is like for the students who are listening is like to hear your perspective on like, did like university or education teach you to be ready? Or like, what's your thoughts on that sort of idea? Like, could they have done anything better maybe to improve your chances overall on your career?
So wait, sorry, let me understand the question.
Sorry, let me just keep that. I kind of over said that. So, did university teach you how to be ready for the industry? So, like, did your education teach you?
Yeah, I think it did. Like, I think forcing myself to, you know, that's a pretty broad question, but like
definitely.
Forcing myself to actually pay a ton of money, actually forced me to, you know, because I was held financially responsible.
Yeah.
That's not like the best answer, I guess, but like, it's like if you pay for something, you're a lot more inclined to actually go through with performing it, as opposed to like, you know, like let's say you download a movie through a torrent site. Maybe you won't watch it because you had no skin in the game kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
I definitely think it helped me. Like there's all of the students that you're going to be working with the entire time. They're all like-minded individuals. They all have the same passion. Well, not all, but most of them have the same passions as you. And, you know, you basically create this whole network of friends and teachers and faculty members that are contributing to your career growing. So, yeah, it can actually be a huge advantage to go to university for sure.
I'm actually, I know you said that it's probably not the best answer to the question, but I'm really glad you said about that it kind of forced you to like obviously just to get the work done, like get the job done, because you've obviously invested into that. And a lot of students and a lot of people are thinking right now, maybe they're new to art and they're trying to figure out where to invest their money, like what's the right career path to go down. Like there's a lot of questions that they're asking themselves, and obviously I understand that like you don't know if the course is right for you until you try it, but until you do start investing in things and investing your time, investing your money, that's when the answers finally get answered, basically.
Oh yeah, well, like me and Tim, we had a kind of semi-drunken podcast a few weeks back.
Awesome, brilliant.
Where we kind of touched on that specifically, and I think like it's just like if you're thinking about, well, should I go to university or should I not? Should I do online courses, whatever? I think like the most important thing you have to do is analyze yourself. Like, are you the type of person that's capable of sitting in your basement and just, you know, like spending all of your time learning all these crazy different techniques and, you know, trying to figure out ways on your own of promoting your own growth as an artist? And if you are that person, then, you know, maybe more online courses or like little tutorials that you buy here and there will drastically help you grow. Whereas if you're not that type of person, if, you know, you tend to procrastinate, like I kind of fall in between.
Okay.
Like sometimes I'm better at just going out and doing my own thing. Sometimes I like having a course. Sometimes I like having a mentor. But yeah, if you're definitely one of those people that can't do that, then I think university is more for you, because you're going to be put in a position where you're forced to learn all these different techniques, right? And you're going to be forced to network with people. It's also more complicated too, because like if you don't go to university, then you don't get the same soft skills and networking opportunities to learn that you would if you did go to university. So if you're at home doing, you know, online courses and stuff like that, like I really think it would be super beneficial to actually go out and you know, try to find networking events, try to find places where you can meet like-minded people and get the same type of education in terms of networking and soft skills that you would get if you had gone to university.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah. Wow, amazing, brilliant. I like this. Here we go. So it's nice because it's like there's like so many different like paths and stuff that people are obviously like trying to go down. There's different routes and so forth, and like you said there, like getting like your name out there and creating like a presence. And like for example, with me, I kind of found a loop through the podcast. in the sense that, like, so one of my main things that I've always liked to do is simply just help people. And even though I'm still learning the roots and I'm still like a beginner myself, there's like everyone has their own voice, and everyone has like their own different path. But speaking on like social media and stuff, like, do you have any, like, what's your thoughts on social media? Like, do you think when it comes to like developing a name for yourself, is there any advice maybe you could give?
Oh yeah, that's like a whole online course in itself. It's that was like a big thing for me, is like I had barely done any social media. You know, that really sucks to say. I'm like 14 years into my career. If I had started 10 years ago when Facebook and all these other social media groups had just gotten started, I think it would have been a lot easier to make a name for myself. But yeah, this whole experience has actually been super intense. It's actually been a super intense learning experience for me, because like, I don't know, there's so much stuff that you have to keep in mind. It's like releasing things on different platforms at different times with the right audience, not wasting people's times with spam and whatnot. I think, like, you know, the whole speaking thing that we were talking about earlier, that really ties into it too. You have to have a voice, and you have to have something to show that people, maybe they've seen it before, but maybe they haven't been shown in that way that will really click with them. Yep. So I think it's also like, if you're going to get into the game of like creating tutorials or creating a name for yourself, like, you really just have to analyze your market, right? And come up with, you know, maybe some things about like, well, this has never been done before, you know, or maybe it has, but it's only been done a couple times as opposed to this other thing that's been done 500 times. So it's like analyzing the saturation of the market that you're trying to get into, and then coming up with your own voice that seems genuine. It can't be robotic. Like, if you go look at some of my earlier tutorials, it's, you know, you can tell I'm basically reading from a notepad file, and it's like, it's very obvious. And I'm like tempted to even remove some of those tutorials now, but it's like, whatever. Like, I think like the more you do it, the less you kind of care about those little things, you know. Like, I used to go into my audio files for my marketing videos and remove all the ums and the ahs, and you know, gosh, that would just that would just take it would just take forever. And it's like, well, like, and at the same time, when you remove all that stuff, it actually makes it feel like it doesn't feel as genuine anymore, because it doesn't feel like you're having a conversation with somebody, and it feels a lot more robotic. So it's, I don't know, there's a bunch of different stuff on it that I think would really help.
That's awesome, because it's crazy how you just brought that, because that's literally what I just did half an hour ago. So like, obviously I just said it there. God damn it! It's like the most used letter in English vocabulary. Literally, just a force of habit.
It's crazy. Like, if I go look at, even now, I have a really, really hard time not saying like, you know.
Oh gosh,
you know. Like, there's just all these words that you kind of have created for yourself to fill in the gaps of thought, you know, as you're trying to create sentences in your brain, and you just you have to train yourself to get rid of those.
Definitely. Because like that's the crazy thing, because it's like, but it's so true, and it's so important. And like the main sort of like point about this, and like what we're discussing here, is like, is technically just like being yourself. And
totally.
Like, it sounds so simple, but like, obviously, gosh, I just said like, and now I keep thinking about it. This is gonna be an interesting podcast.
I don't know, like, be aware of it, but don't let it like inhibit you from actually speaking, because a lot of people would do that, you know.
Oh, I'm one of those people that I just like, I can't stop talking. That's just what I do. But when it comes to like just things in general, where it comes to you as a person, where it comes to your portfolio, like, we can talk about portfolio. That'd be awesome to talk about environment art.
And for sure.
Like, so for example, environment art, it's like, it's both for our passions. We both enjoy it, and find the thing that you enjoy. Like, it's so obvious, but whatever type of art you want to make, that's what you want to make. Like, that's you being yourself. And like, so many people, I guess, strive to sometimes compare themselves to other people in the industry, but that's not who they are, if you know what I mean. Like, that's like, you have to be you.
Yeah, I find like a lot of students, and this kind of goes with the university stuff that we were speaking about earlier. Like a lot of students, when they take these big courses in universities and colleges, the colleges, they basically offer a giant smorgasbord platter of like different things that they could potentially learn, and that's really good because if you take the course and you don't specifically know exactly what specialization you want to get into, then by the end of the course you'll probably have a lot clearer of a goal in mind in terms of your career path, right? But at the same time, that can be like a little bit of a boon because you're learning a ton of different, like a little bit of a ton of different things instead of like specializing in that one thing and becoming amazing at it. So I think like the more you focus on like one specific specialization, I think the easier it's going to be for you to actually find a job in the industry. Like, let's say there's a student that he goes to school, he learns like a little bit of speech animation for characters, and then he learns a little bit of concept art. Yeah, he's probably not going to get hired unless he's amazing at one of them, right? Whereas somebody that spent almost all of that same time, like say a year and a half learning how to use Substance Designer, that would be amazing for a company that was looking for a substance artist, right? Because they would just be like, oh wow, like this guy's got like 50 different substance materials, he definitely knows the ins and outs of the program, and he can bring a lot to the table in terms of showing other people how to use the program too, right? So that specialization is pretty key.
Like, I'm really glad you said that because when I was in university, there was I was really fortunate. I was one of those students so I always knew what I wanted to do. I always knew it was environment art. I was like, this is what I'm going to do. I love it. Boom, simple as that. And when I finished university, there were still tons of people who were still very indecisive. But I understand that's okay. Like if you're listening right now, that there's nothing wrong with that. It's just down to acknowledging the fact that at the end of the day, it's the quality of the work that's required. So if you're not getting a job, you just have to be patient with it, and trust and patience and trust and time, and naturally through that process, you'll get where you want to go. Yeah,
I think like you also have to be like very analytical about what you want. Like if you're kind of half on the fence about learning that one specialization, maybe that isn't the specialization for you, like especially during the learning phase of it. So it just started raining really, really hard in my apartment.
It's okay.
Yeah, so I don't know if you can hear the pitter patter in the background.
Okay, so quite relaxing, we'll go with it.
Okay.
Well, we'll carry on this sort of topic and like choosing like a passion and stuff. So what got you into environment art? Like when did that become a thing? Was it always the sort of path that you wanted to go for?
Well, like I had been drawing since I was like 2.
Oh wow, awesome!
I used to draw Ninja Turtles, and my mom was like, "Oh, my mom thought my Ninja Turtles were good."
Awesome.
Yeah.
Can't go wrong with Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, well, like I kept drawing and drawing and drawing, and I always knew that like I was going to be an artist of some type. And my brother, who was actually he's a I think he's a technical director. He's like a programmer or something like that at Amazon in California.
Amazing.
He at the time he was in Vancouver, and he was working for a game studio. It was called H2O. They did like Tetris games and a bunch of other games. And he knew that I wanted to be an artist, and I had expressed interest in doing 3D stuff. So the owner of the company, his name is actually Chris Bailey. He's like just this awesome dude. He actually gave me a copy of Maya back when
nice.
I was like 10, and this was a while ago, right?
You were 10 and you got Maya.
Yeah, it was like 20 years ago, and this is back when like there wasn't subscriptions to sign up for these programs. You could download it on the internet, but you'd probably get a virus, and I the internet was just becoming fast enough at that time to actually be able to download things at a speed that was higher than 5 kilobytes a second.
Ooh, okay.
Yes. Yeah. So I basically got my hands on Maya and started learning that, started modeling, stuff like that, and I was just in love with it like right away. And it was also cool because I got to see my brother's game studio and like all the cool stuff they were doing there, and that really inspired me and kind of solidified me on that path of wanting to get into 3D modeling and environment art in general.
Awesome. That's super cool because like everyone, by the way, like I said, make sure to check out his work because the range is insane. It's really good. And
thanks, man.
Like you said as well, he's got tutorials as well, and the landscape package as well. Like that looks really cool. I will have to look
Thanks,
into that
man.
myself. Because like the one thing that I would still say it's my main weakness is like foliage and mountains and stuff. I love like obviously I love environment art and stuff, but there's obviously like, there's certain areas that there's still lots of room for improvement. And
always,
like
there's always some new program. You know what I mean? Like there's always some new program that you have to learn, and it's like it's up and coming and it's revolutionary, and like there's like 5 of them per year.
Yeah, it's so scary.
Yeah.
Like I really want to like the software I want to learn is SpeedTree. Is it a software or is it a plugin? I think it's a software.
I think it's both. Yeah, like you can get like, well, sorry, it's not a plugin, but they have versions of the software that are dedicated to specific programs, right? So they have one that's like, it's set for Unreal. So if you use it, it's like everything's all set up with the shaders and everything so that you can just basically click a button and it brings it into Unreal and everything just magically works.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's actually, I just started learning it about like 6 months ago.
Awesome.
Yeah, and it's kind of like World Machine. It's one of those programs where you can, it can get as complex as you want it to, or it can be like super basic and you start off with like a base mesh and then tweak a couple things on it and voila, you have a tree.
Like is your the tutorial package, is that like making like procedurally generated like how's that work? Like what is the main function of it?
Well, it's basically like a procedural texturing shader for landscapes in Unreal 4. So you can, import like a height map from any software you're choosing, say like a mountainous terrain, and through the shader, you can basically put it onto the landscape and it textures it for you.
Wow.
So like depending on the angle of the slope, you'll have, rocky mountains or dirt or grass. There's a few extra like material functions inside of it that allow like procedural snow generation, and there's a bunch of bells and whistles in it. It took so long to make.
Yeah,
it was
awesome. It looks really cool.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it was. I wasn't that much of a technical artist when I first started it, and then by the end of it, I was like, okay, like I think maybe I can actually do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, because like one of the main reasons why I wanted to bring it up as well, because like obviously like there's the whole debate, or the most common, literally the most over asked question in history is the software question. But I completely understand where students are coming from because of it's kind of like a 5-year trend, or sometimes even yearly. It's like there's so like you said, it's like there's so much things getting flown into the mix, and everyone's trying to keep up to date with how crazy and how rapidly things are going. Like there's one of my viewers was actually wanted me to ask you specifically is like, is there, so they're specializing like 2 software, or like they're comfortable with 2 software. So he was saying that he's very comfortable in Maya and Substance Painter, and his question was actually, is there anything, like if you had to choose one software, like what would be that software, since he's an environment artist? Would you like say ZBrush or something?
I'd probably say ZBrush. I think it would probably depend on what his goals as an artist are. Like if he wants to be a content artist, then yeah, definitely ZBrush. Awesome. Whereas like if he wants to be a level artist, maybe Unreal 4. So it would it would entirely depend on his goals. Like if his goal all day is to sit there and do high poly meshes and then import them into ZBrush and do some sculpting on them for environments and then bring them into Substance Painter, then yeah, ZBrush for sure. You know,
if you're tuning in, make sure to go for ZBrush. That's the one. That's the go-to.
Yeah. Well, like there's substitutions for ZBrush. I think Blender has like not procedural, but like sculpting stuff inside of it. There's just a sculpting program of your choice that's fairly industry standard, I would say.
Awesome. No, that's great because I started this new sort of series at the start of the week. So basically, I open everything up to the listeners and see what questions they would like me to raise, basically. And like there's so many different ones. But continue like the whole idea of like environment art for students and stuff. Has there been anything that you notice that is quite common that environment artists are missing out for students? Like, is there anything that you think they should be doing like better at? I know it's a big one.
Yeah, it's you can't really nail it down to like one thing.
Yeah.
It's usually a bunch of different things, and it might be focusing too much detail on like that one thing that's in this tiny corner of the frame of their portfolio piece, as opposed to like focusing on the overall detail or the overall shape language of their meshes. Or I probably think like lighting is a fairly standard one, because like presentation is just so key. Like if you have a nice model but you present it in such a way where like the lighting looks really flat and boring, then it's the aesthetic of the image isn't going to be nearly as visually pleasing to the people that are looking at it, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd probably say like having at least like the basic knowledge of what makes good lighting would have the biggest impact on increasing how much people respond to their portfolios.
Awesome. And then like speaking on like environments as well, like so this is like the coolest thing that I got from your talk. So there's actually two things. So one of them include The Matrix, so the movie The Matrix, and then the second one was when you were talking about James Bond. So you mentioned something that I've never, like, it just never clicked for some reason in my head. But you like talk about like so do like you were saying about like James Bond, he's like this cool guy and so forth, and like what pretty much like how do you describe James Bond? And the main thing I got from when you were talking about what Skyfall and all those different films was like flow, so like how things flow in a piece of art. So like when you were talking about when you showed the like, do you know the shot when he's just like walking as like, Mr. like Superman, he's just like so casual as like there's so much craziness going on down below. And like the whole shot like just makes sense. And like the reason why I wanted to bring that up is because it's like, do you know, like you just said there about when it's like the small details that people tend to overthink. But it's great when like an environment piece flows as one image, or like has like some sort of like there's not too much going on, like there's not too like there's a place for your eye to settle, like there's like you talk about like the golden rule, etc. I'm not sure what your thoughts are on like the whole idea of flow, if you understand what I mean.
Like I think when you talk about flow, I think it's more just about like analyzing your product and knowing what type of product it is, who the characters are, and how you can tell the story of them through your art, right? So like in that specific example, like James Bond, he's a ladies' man, he's basically a god among mortals, you know, he's bigger than life. He doesn't care what other people think. He's super badass with martial arts and all that. So like when you something as simple as framing him as a character in your painting or in your shot, you have to show that at all times, right? Like the things that he does when he interacts in an action scene. Like James, I talk about it a lot. I say James Bond don't run.
He doesn't.
Like he walks. And that's such like an action hero trope, but it's done especially well in James Bond. Like there's that opening shot in it was Spectre, I believe, right? Yeah, where he's like walking along the rooftops.
Yeah, that's the one.
They got the cool music, and he's above the square in Mexico City. And he's, there's like, he's jumping from rooftop to rooftop, but he's not even jumping. He's literally like walking, and they've constructed the set in such a way that tells that story so that he doesn't have to exert effort. He's too cool to exert effort. The only time he actually does is when he's like trying to fight somebody, Yeah. So, I think that kind of goes hand in hand with like analyzing your environment and trying to, analyze like the core pillars of what make the brand that you're currently working on, and then brainstorming different ways that you can integrate those foundational pillars into your camera angles, into your lighting, into the props that you use, into the placement of the props, so that they contribute to the story, you know?
Mm-hmm. When it comes to speaking of story once again, it's so do you know, obviously a lot of environment artists, obviously they can go down the route for games, the route for film, there's different paths they can take. And one of the main things that when I was at university that was talked about was fly-throughs. However, I'm not sure now fly-throughs is you can say I'm completely wrong, maybe it's just I need to update my stuff, but fly-through isn't a common thing anymore, in the sense that the reason why I wanted to bring it up is because when you have a fly-through, you can really show off the story and the path that you want the viewer to go within your environment. Whereas obviously the most common thing that people do on ArtStation is that, and it's what I do, is that we just post beauty renders and so forth onto ArtStation. But I'm not sure what your thoughts are on just fly-throughs in general. Do you think that should be something that should be shown more of?
I think you can have a fly-through that's really well done. Mm-hmm. But I think most of the time it's just not really well done if it's a junior artist that's doing it. The camera's really kind of janky, and it's zooming around, seeing 50 things at once. You never see that in movies. I think if you're trying to figure out what types of shots you should have for your demo reel, go back to the basics. Go look at what the best cinematographers are doing. Go look at say Roger Deakins' work, or it's not when they do an environment, sometimes they do have a fly through, but it's quite basic. It's just a camera floating and going forward through a city or something, or a slight pan. They don't tend to overcomplicate camera angles and stuff like that. They try to keep them simple so that analyzing them for a story is easier, basically, and less information for the viewer to actually be able to comprehend when they look at the shot. So I think it could be done correctly, and it could be done in a good way, but I'd probably stick to the basics, small images. Small pans with dynamic shots that go up and down or left to right. Even the rotating thing on the how do you say that? Characters on the podium.
Oh, kind of the diorama thing.
Yeah, the diorama thing, that. That's cool. You can do it. It's just it's not for beauty shots. It's mostly they're doing it. They're rotating around the character to show that the character in 360 when viewed looks good. And they usually have a wireframe, or they show different shader passes. So that's more of a functional artistic pass versus a beauty render. So I don't know, my advice would be just try to keep it as simple as possible, almost always. If you're overcomplicating things in any form or fashion, be it how much noise you have in your texture or how many lights you have in your scene, usually the less is more,
Yeah, it's because it's I always like to ask these type of questions because it's obviously everyone has a different perspective, and no, I'm really glad you said that, because a lot of people, particularly students, is they always try to throw everything in together, or they tend to have a habit of I want to add this, I want to add that, but then they lose sight of the actual big picture. And just we're talking about composition, and when we were saying about composition, the Matrix thing, the thing I found was the super cool thing that you said was, do you know when Neo was having the conversation with Morpheus, and the glass cups in the middle of the table? I did not notice that. I could never tell, and then it all made sense. Everything just came together story wise, and it's all these small things that go such a long way. And the Matrix, that's a great example for to study as a film of, there's so many different things you can take from that film.
Oh, totally. Yeah, it's in that they do probably one of the, there's so many examples of wicked filmmaking and wicked cinematography, but in The Matrix, it was just so well done, the way that they analyzed what their overall theme for the film was. Say duality, there's two what is the Matrix, essentially, which goes along with that whole purpose of the real world versus the Matrix, and they obviously brainstormed like, how can we show that duality? How can we always have opposing figures in every frame? And yeah, like basically if you check out my talk, I talk all about it. It's I found that like mind blowing when I first started watching it again for like the 50th time. I was like, holy crap, like, wow, you know?
That's super cool. I was actually wondering, so like, since you're obviously like you're an assistant art director, like, so I take it like the career sort of ambition is to become an art director. Like, is there like anything different that most people like what does it take to be an assistant art director? Like, what's the steps, and also like to get further on as an art director as well? Like, does there anything like stand out to make that sort of gap?
Well, I just started doing this maybe like 6 months ago, but yeah, it was always kind of something that I wanted to do and knew that I wanted to get to. But in terms of steps, you know, obviously like you have to be like a pretty solid artist. You have to be a good team player. You have to, you know, be able to give feedback as well as accept it. I think like it's a lot more soft skill driven than, you know, if you were say an environment artist on the floor. So like, that means, you know, being able to give feedback to people in such a way that doesn't crush that thing that they've been their hopes and dreams, basically, you know, like,
yeah.
Or like being able to strategically tell somebody that they have to redo something for the third time in such a way that makes them want to redo it, you know, like, and yeah, I still feel like I have a ton to learn in terms of that specifically. It's also like if you're an art director, assistant art director, like you kind of just have to drop the ball. Like, and when I say drop the ball, I mean like hand over the reins to somebody else to be able to get the art done. And it's like, you know, coming from a production background where you're constantly on the floor and you're constantly like making the environments and stuff, it's hard to just stop doing that and to be able to rely on somebody else to do it instead. So I think like being able to trust your employees is also another big part of it, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, I'm really glad you said that, because like when it comes to like so like maybe there is somebody who's listening in and they're trying to get that extra step of their environment artist, or they have a career ambition for that. Like my sort of like I have this sort of like I have like a few ultimate dreams or ultimate goals. I would like to be a director. And like one day make my own film, because I've been writing my own book for the last 4 years, and
nice.
like just creating my own world and trying to get like inspiration from so many different things, so many different people, and like you said a great thing there, and it's like I know it's hard, but it's like, so once you step up into these positions, it's learning to trust people, and like you said, handing over the reins and so forth. Because I remember listening to an awesome talk by Gavin Golding. So
I used to work with that guy.
Did you? That's insane. That's awesome.
Yeah. At my very first game company, he was a character artist.
It's crazy how small. Everyone always says it, but it's such a small industry. That's super cool.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Because like I'm trying to think if it was on the Character Art podcast or it was a talk with GDC, and he was talking about how his career through Insomniac and how weird it was to basically like I wouldn't say weird, but he just said because he obviously had to switch things up. Like obviously he didn't have to do as much art as he used to, because obviously it was a different role, different job that had to be done. But like the main reason I like to bring this sort of stuff up and talk about it is because all these soft skills and all these important small things help you grow as a person. And it's through doing these different things, trying out something different. Like even if you are an environment artist and you're listening in, and you're maybe a bit intimidated to maybe, I want to be an assistant art director, but you don't think you have it in you, just give it a go. You never know. Reach out and take it from there.
Yeah, totally. Like I don't know, like pretty much any time in my career where like I've actually felt uncomfortable about what I was working on was usually the moment where I actually became a way better artist. You know, because like you're basically put in this position where your back is to a wall and you're like, oh, how am I going to do this? I have 3 days to do it. Okay. And then, you know, you've been procrastinating about learning this one specific skill for days or years perhaps, and just being thrust into that and then forced to actually like go and do research on how to learn or on where to learn how to do it or what to learn how to do it. I think that's totally key to just constantly improving yourself.
Like I like how you said that. So like the whole idea of pressure, and it's like learning how to kind of compose yourself, take a step back, and that's actually a really interesting point you said there, because I haven't really talked about that on the podcast. Is so obviously when you work in game or you work in film, you have time limits, you have constraints and so forth.
Oh yeah.
Is there anything that has helped you kind of maybe relieve the pressure or just improve? Or I know it's what's the best way for me to word this? Like so when you are like limited for time, has anything helped you, I guess?
I think if I'm ever like sitting there freaking out about what I have to do, because maybe I don't know how to do it or I have a hardcore time constraint. Like, I think one of the things that really, really helps me is going and finding tutorials on how to do it, obviously. But also like just reassuring myself that like, there's so many people that do this stuff. And like, there's so many people that have these tiny little techniques that they use to drastically increase their speed doing that one thing. And, just realizing the fact that like you're not alone. There's so many other people there that can help you, and especially if you're in a studio environment, there's tons of people. There's tons of different people in different departments that have all these different specializations that can contribute knowledge to that one thing that you're doing. So I think it's just realizing that like you're not alone and that the techniques are there and you just need to learn them.
Definitely, because like obviously everyone who's tuning in, everybody knows that I'm still kind of like for myself, I'm still trying to pursue my sort of career and so I finished uni, like I said, just a few years ago, and I've always tried to figure out how do I make that next step. And so I always say to everyone, it's just trust and patience. You work hard, work smart, and the main one for me is asking questions. And like you'll be an expert at knowing based on what you've been doing over the years, and through lots of practice. It's just constantly being open and not being afraid to ask someone who's maybe higher above you, because at the end of the day, like we're all, like you said, we're all human. Like we're like no one's going to unless you're in an environment that's a bit, I don't know, surrounded by evil people. We'll go with that. And they're just super cruel.
Yeah. I think just realizing those people are out there, and like that may mean going on a social media site and then putting a post asking for help. Oh, how do I do this? Like, is there any special techniques that might increase my speed doing this? Like, there's the industry isn't what it was 10 years ago. Like, there's just so many training resources out there and so many different platforms where all of these like-minded people have kind of come together and create this whole network of information sharing. So definitely take advantage of it, especially if you feel in a corner or pressured to do something that you feel a little bit intimidated by.
Yeah. Right. So I've got this. So this is a new question. I think I said it to you at the start. I hope I did. So every time from now on, I've kind of like tried to switch it up a little bit with this question, because I think it opens things up just in general. So it's like, is there anything you wish you learned what's the best way? No, here we go. If you had to redo everything again, what would you change?
Oh, that's like the standard Back to the Future. If I change that one thing, then I get hit by a car 3 years later.
Okay, in regards to art.
I don't know. I don't.
That's okay.
To be completely honest, I don't really feel like I would change much. Like,
awesome.
Yeah, there's kind of mistakes that I made a lot along the way in my career, but like it was usually like through those mistakes that I actually they forced me to learn something new, or forced me to grow as an artist, or I nothing really jumps to mind immediately.
That's a great to hear, actually. That's a good answer. There's nothing wrong with that. That's obviously like I'm open to anything. It's all about getting like different stories and different answers and stuff. And like you never know. Like if the path's gone smooth, that's great. Like everyone has different journeys and stuff, and that's what it's all about. It's all about hearing different perspectives. So the final question that I sent you. So I always talk about university versus online courses, and talk about just your thoughts and stuff based on like your own experience. what's your thoughts on the two? And do you have maybe a preferred preference? You can go for both. What's your thoughts on them?
I think it goes back to what I was saying before. So, what type of person are you? Are you more of a university person, or are you more of a kind of lone wolf that can do things on your own without the push of, being in a situation that's, there's social pressure and assignments that you have to do. Like, I don't know. It's like the world isn't what it used to be 10 years ago. Like I was just saying, there's just so much stuff out there where you can basically learn things for free if you have the tenacity to actually go and learn it yourself.
Yeah.
If you have that ambition to, work a job at McDonald's and then go home and work another 8 hours after it, in your spare time when all of your friends are partying and doing whatever, then yeah, maybe like online courses are for you. And, it also depends on like how much time you're willing to actually put into learning these things. Like if you're just busting your ass for years trying to learn this one specific specialization, then and you're passionate about it, you can see the improvement, you're getting feedback from other people and they're all saying that you're good at it, then you're gonna get a job for sure. Yeah. But yeah, but like I said before, like the benefits of university, there's networking, you're going to meet a whole bunch of people. And like pretty much for me, like almost every single job that I've ever got in the game industry, it's because I knew somebody in the company. It's like somebody always refers you, and it's like having that network is really, really key. And if you go to university, you're going to have a better chance of obtaining that network right off the bat, right? Because all of the students that you're going to school with, in 10 years from now, some of them might be art directors, some of them might be lead artists, and that happened to me. And it was awesome having like all these friends that I'd, kind of grown up with, grow with me in my career,
Yeah.
So it depends on the person, I guess.
Definitely. No, because I always like to ask you, I always wonder what what you guys think. So every time I ask the professionals and stuff, like what's your thoughts on this question? Is it an annoying question? Is why is this guy asking this question? And it's,
no.
The reason why I just ask it is because I think it's always about it's like the whole idea that I always bring up. It's like the different perspective and opening up like the different options that are available to you, and because there's so many different paths. And like the one thing I realized, so I did a lot of the Gnomon tutorials, and they were probably the most rewarding thing I've done in the last 5 years of my studying. And because when I talk about student education, so I loved the university I went to, and the people who I went to university, I was really fortunate to be taught by and so forth, and be surrounded by. But when it comes to, I guess, the learning aspect, to me, it was all down to the self-learning and what I did on the side, like the side projects. So I was always sculpting something different on the side, because this is the crazy thing in my university. So only 2 of us used ZBrush. Everybody else, nobody ever even thought about touching ZBrush at the time. I only touched it because one of my friends, Douglas, was like, "Oh, I'm making these awesome rocks," and I was like, "Dude, that looks so cool! Time for me to make rocks." So that was literally the only reason why I started using ZBrush. And there's so many different like you said, there's so many different tools out there. I'm not sure, has there been anything what websites have helped you over the years? Has anything maybe different come to mind, or is it like your typical standards like ArtStation or Gnomon? Is anything that kind of pop out to you?
I think ArtStation, Gnomon, just YouTube. YouTube's probably like the big one. Like you can basically go on YouTube and search for like anything, you know? Like if you want to find a tutorial on sculpting rocks, for instance, there's probably like, no joke, 1,000 of them, and they go through every single program that you could possibly use to make a rock. Some people have invented their own programs to make rocks. So it's just the internet as a whole. There's so many different sites on there and so many different resources that like you have to take advantage of them if you want to stay sharp as an artist, basically.
Yeah. Is there any sort of like names? So like one of the ones I've realized that I don't have a clue why I didn't hear of it before, but it's something I've been really new to, is the Flip Normals one. So I've been watching the Flip Normals videos. one of my favorite things is what do you call it, the ZBrush sculpt off. That happens every year. Have you ever seen the sculpt off for Pixologic?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, that's one I highly recommend. So that happens.
Really?
It's so awesome. So it's for character art, but there's a lot of like asset building and so forth. And have you ever heard of a character artist called Furio Tedeschi?
So, it rings a bell.
So this guy is like insane, and his artwork's amazing. So basically, what happens at Gnomon is Gnomon runs a yearly event in September for, I think it's a month, and so they do all their presentations from Uncharted, etc. Like Starbase Studios, maybe Insomniac Games, and basically they have a sculpt off as well that takes place, and they get offered a wrestling belt at the end.
Okay.
So it's like that's the award. So it's like it says ZBrush sculpt off a hard surface winner or whatever, and like that's probably like the coolest part of the year for me as a person who loves sculpting. So that's awesome.
What is it? It's just flipnormals.com?
Oh no, so that's part of the sculpt off. That's part of the Gnomon channel, and also I think on the Pixologic. So I'm not sure they're owned by the same people, or they work together side by side. So I'll put it in the link below, and I'll send you a link after. It's so good.
Oh, awesome. I'll definitely check it out.
So yeah, like if you're listening in, folks, make sure to check out. So it's called the ZBrush Summit Sculpt Off, and they literally have like everyone just like 2 hours make a character or make something, and they like it's like everyone goes to war. just making art. It's so good.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I'm not sure. What channels? Is there any channel names that ring a bell to you?
It's usually just people.
Like, oh right, okay.
It's less channels. Like it's usually like I'll find out about this one artist that's like amazing at doing this one thing, or maybe they're amazing at doing 10, and go do research on like if they have any tutorials, or like a lot of like the really good ones do. Jonas Ronegard, like Josh Lynch, like all those guys. Anything that's like ZBrush or Substance Designer, Substance Painter, like they always have all these tutorials there. I would just like go do some research on ArtStation for artists that are doing the thing that you want to do. Yeah. And then figure out what their job title is, and search more artists that are like them, basically, and just compile like a big list of like, okay, well, this guy does tutorials, this guy does this, and a lot of these big artists, they're just selling tutorials for like so cheap too. Like it's literally the cheapest time to buy amazing courses from people. So it's all there and right for the taking.
I'm glad you said that, because so Tim and I, Tim actually mentioned this on the podcast with Tim. So there's so like you said there, you nailed it. So like there's so many great resources out there that a lot of artists who are sharing their knowledge, like they're getting underpaid, or like they're offering too generous offers. And I know like a lot of as artists will be like, oh no, Ross, be quiet, we want it for cheaper and stuff. But like I understand that, like the cheaper the better, obviously, because it means you learn. But you have to acknowledge the fact that like these people have been learning for years, and for them to sacrifice, like the way Tim put it was the way for because even Tim, so everyone who's listening, make sure to go check out Tim's channel, Polygon Academy, because he's thinking about making premium content as well. But you have to make the most of the opportunities available to you when it comes to like the material that Lincoln's discussing, because you never know, like it might go, like the prices might change in the next few years, and because of things going so rapidly, like you just have to like go at it now, because you might lose your chance.
Yeah, well, like I definitely think like it's always going to be cheaper than like going to university or something. Like it's like I said, like I spent $30,000 on a 1.5-year private college course,
Wow, gee whiz.
Whereas like you can literally, and like one class per semester was, I can't remember, it was something like $350 or something. And like you can basically go and get the exact same course from one of these professionals we were talking about for like, even if it's like $200, like some of them are $50, some of them are $200. think it isn't necessarily a depiction of the quality of the course, like the price. But I think it just depends on which artist really speaks to you when they do the tutorials. Like, maybe try something small from them. And if, the way that they talk to you, does it speak to you? Is it easy to learn their stuff? Are their tutorials created in like a really cohesive, easy to digest way for you specifically? Then like grab their stuff for sure. Like it's so undervalued, a lot of this stuff. Like, and I definitely think the value is going to go up. Because, people, they spend so much time on this stuff. Like for me, for instance, like my landscape shader, I was seriously working on it for like 6 months, like nonstop. I think my wife just wanted to kill me.
Books.
Well, like when I finally like hit the publish button, it was like, okay, our marriage, we're gonna have time for actual relationship things now,
Yeah.
So like everybody's making these sacrifices to, put their name out there and to get a little bit of extra money on the side, but also to mentor people. And, we definitely put like our hearts and souls into this stuff, right? And we're just like a lot of artists in the industry, we're just such passionate people, and we just want the world to learn from us, right? Like, so, maybe I got a little bit sidetracked there.
That's awesome. I always like to let the conversation flow, so if you want to keep talking, just keep on talking. No, but thanks for saying all that, because it means a lot, and it's important for students to know, because like there's so many different things that they need to utilize now. Like time's of the essence. It's you never know how things change, like we said earlier. But thank you so much for coming on, man. It's been awesome having you.
Yeah,
on.
Man. Dude, thank you.
If once again, folks, if you're listening in, make sure to go give him a follow. Check out his work. So I'll put all the links in the comments below. Everyone who's listening on the other 9 platforms, so there's a different section now for the Anchor, the Apple Podcast, and so forth. So I'll send you a link for that as well, so you can access that stuff as well. Don't forget to leave a like and make sure to subscribe. That'll be much appreciated. Until next time, folks, we will see you later. Bye for now.